What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful night tonight. Beautiful night. So, have a beverage here. I don't know how you pronounce it. There's a K in the front that throws me off. Knudsen. R.W. Knudsen. I don't know. Take a look for yourself. So, it's black cherry, 100% pure black cherry juice, not from concentrate. So this is the real stuff. Shake it up. Glass of ice. Glass of ice. Look at that. Looks delicious. Let it cool down a little bit. So today, for the first time in my life, I drove an electric car. I'm gonna try it. I think it's cold enough. Delicious. Delicious. Very rich. Very rich. Delicious. Wow. Top it off. Top it off. So, I drove an electric car today, and the person who gave me the electric car, the vehicle to drive, they asked me, they said, have you ever driven an electric car before? And I said, no, I haven't. And they said, okay, let me show you some things. I said, all right. So we went to the car, and she got in there, and she said, first thing you're going to do, she goes, you're going to press on the gas before you start it. She goes, you press on the gas and then hit the start button, and it'll start up. Now I'm looking at her foot, and it's every time she says the gas, it's hitting the brake. And I said, so I should hit the gas and then hit the. She goes, yeah, hit the gas first, and then hit the. And then I look at her foot again, and it's on the brake. So I go, I don't know what's going on there. So anyway, it turns out I hit the brake and I started, but you have to put your seatbelt on, otherwise it doesn't start. I'll tell you this though, the pluses, a lot of power. You know, I'm sitting there and I hit the accelerator. I was going to say the gas, but I hit the accelerator, and tremendous power right away. Boom, it's there. With gas, you have that little bit of a delayed reaction slightly. And this one, no transmission, so it keeps accelerating and accelerating. You don't feel that, like switching into gears to go faster. So I like that, and it reminded me a lot when I was a kid. I would get on the trains, the electric trains, and that's what it felt like. It felt like the train accelerating on a train. So from that point of view, I enjoyed the driving, especially the acceleration. You get on the road, you hit the accelerator, the thing just picks up and takes off. You leave everybody behind you. A lot of energy in there. Thing I don't like is you're always worried about running out of energy, battery power. I know you go and charge it, right? Yeah, I'm aware of that. But gasoline, you go to a gas station, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, you're full. You can go another 320 miles. But electric, you have to find a place and relax for about an hour. You have to relax. And if you run out of electric, I don't know, if the battery dies, what do? They tow you, right? Where gas, they bring you a gallon, boom, put it in, and then you're off on your merry way, and you find your own gas station. But as far as the handling and the acceleration, I was very impressed. Very impressed. A lot of torque right away. It just bites into the ground. And no noise. You know, you're at the light, and it feels like the car's off. You don't hear anything. Yeah, they've added that sound to warn people. You know, otherwise, if it was totally silent, which it would be, you'd be running over everybody every couple of days. But yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and nice performance. But like I said, I worry about if, like, let's say I filled up the battery and the battery had 500 miles on it, 500 guaranteed miles, no matter what the weather, cold, hot, whatever, then I wouldn't fear it. 500 miles, I'm all set. But this one here had a max of I think 310, and every few miles I would notice boom, boom, boom going down. So I drove about 30 miles today, not that much, 30 miles, and I'm down 12% from the max. And these are the kind of cars you would never, ever, ever go down to 5%. Many times when I have gas, I'll go down to like 1/8 of a tank, maybe even less. There have been times when I go to fill up, and I have a 26-gallon tank, and I will fit in there 25 and over a half, so like 25.6, 25.7 gallons, which means I had basically fumes in there. I think an electric car would not be as forgiving. It would find the worst place to strand you and leave you there. But overall, yeah, I'm impressed. But these people that think they're buying an electric car and saving the environment, you are not. They generate electricity using fossil fuel for the most part. Not all of it, but a good percentage of it is generated by fossil fuels. So you may not be burning it, but the coal factory and the fossil fuel factory, they're burning it for you. Now, hydrogen is the cleanest, but even hydrogen requires fossil fuel or energy of some kind to break it apart. So you gotta, take the water and you gotta separate it. So oxygen and hydrogen, but you need energy to do that, and most likely you're gonna be using fossil fuel. So one day maybe they perfect solar energy, and they can use solar energy to break up water into oxygen and hydrogen, and then you would have the perfect thing. Maybe you'll have a few explosions. Hydrogen is highly explosive, but I have seen these tanks that they've perfected, that like really strong, durable tanks that take a beating, but eventually somebody's going to make it explode. Somebody's going to go fast enough and crash into a tree and make the whole thing blow up. And gas blows up too, but not like hydrogen. This is so good. I'm gonna drink the whole thing. Delicious cherry juice, black cherry, and like I said, it's not from concentrate. And what that means is they squeeze it, and that's what you get. Where from concentrate, they turn it into granules, like Tang when they went to the moon. And then what happens is they add water, reconstitute it, and then you get it. This is not that way. Yeah, this little thing is like $10. Doesn't sound like much, but kind of adds up. So today I went into the Army surplus store, and usually I will get the 550 paracord, which is strong, really strong, and generally for what I'm doing, good enough. Although I have thick rope too. I have thick manila rope, about 2,000 pounds of strength on that, but it's thick. And then I have climber's rope. I have I think a couple of 100 feet of that. But today I bought battle cord, and this one, as you can see, is much thicker. Green is thicker than the black. And that's 550, right? This one is 2650. 2650 is 50 feet, very strong. You never know when you have to tie something down. You're traveling, you go into a store, maybe your bride looks at something and says, hey, I like that couch. You throw it on top of the truck. Well, you need some of this. Keep the couch from flying off on the highway. So it's always good to carry rope around. Not in your pocket, but in the vehicle. You know, you never know when you're going to need it. And this one has, what is it? It's seven, it's like, you know, little ropes and wrapped into one. So it's like eight and one. So it's 7 strands in the core plus the exterior. That's 8 altogether. Very, very strong. Very strong. So yeah. And it's a little bit, you know, feels like maybe it's going to start getting a little damp tomorrow, the next day, I don't know. I highly recommend this. If you see this in the grocery store, pick it up. I just had a meal inside. Indian food. Nice Indian restaurant close by. Gave the guy a call. Actually, my bride did it on the internet. We don't call anymore. The old days used to call. You say, I'm calling for a delivery. Nowadays, you just get on the computer and boom, boom, type it out or whatever. They ship it to you immediately. And I'm surprised how fast they bring things these days. In the old days, you had to wait. And you'd be like, hey, is the food here yet? Be like, nah, it's running late. Nowadays, by the time you think about it, by the time you go wash your hands, the guy's in the front. You know, sometimes I think it's too fast. It gets a little bit on my nerves. A little bit. It does, because, you know, I'm trying to do something and here they are. But it's better than being late. Yeah, in the old days it was different. You called up the pizza place. You'd say, yeah, I'd like to have a pizza delivered at, they'd say, what's the address? What is it again? What's the zip code on that? And then they'd say, yeah, a guy named Jim's coming by. And then you'd wait and wait, and everybody had their own guy. It wasn't like now. It's like outsourced. And then the guy would show up, he'd knock on the door, and then you'd be paying him, you know, pull out the money, and then you'd give him a little extra for the tip. And then they'd leave. I have a bunch of the 550. I only have one of the 2650. And you pick this up, it's strong. It's almost like it wants to fight you. You know. I'm in the mood for a long train ride. You know, I like to take a train ride, and I missed Devil's Tower. That's what I miss. My kids have not gone there yet. I keep mentioning to them. I keep saying one day we're going to go. I've been there with my bride many years ago, before the kids were born, and you know, we had a good time. Kind of creepy. We got there late at night, and then we walked up the hill, and then you see these big heads with the spotlight on them. You know, just, you know, and a little bit creepy. And then you see the tower, the Devil's Tower, and I wanted to see that because it was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Loved that movie. So I'll go there, but I like to take a train. I don't feel like driving it. You know, I could drive it. We drove it before, but I like to get on an Amtrak, relax, see some nice scenery, and maybe even have one of those sleep rooms. You know, you can go there and take a nap. Yeah, I think next time that's what I want to do that. I really like, you know, to take a train all the way up to Canada, Ellesmere Island. I don't think you can get to Ellesmere, but you can go close somewhere and then go to an airport and get one of those propeller planes and go to Ellesmere. But I'll tell you this right now, when I go to these places, I do not want chaperones. I don't want Sherpas. I want to be by myself. I don't want any kind of influence from somebody telling me, yeah, come this way, watch out, you're going to fall into a glacier. And I just want to go by myself and enjoy it. Go where I want to go, eat what I want to eat, stop when I want to stop, go when I want to go, you know. And if I get lost, I get lost. Yeah, it's fun. Trains are fun, but you know, like I said, after a while you're back. Like I said other times, not this time, but you're back. It beats you up. It really does. I've taken the Amtrak cross country. I've taken Greyhound cross country. I've flown cross country. I've driven a few times cross country. I've taken Greyhound a few times. I've taken the train one time cross country, and I've driven a few times, and I've flown many times cross country. The best one is flying. I would say the worst one is Greyhound, but driving is, you know, driving you got to pay attention. You can't open up a magazine and read it while you're driving, right? Well, on a Greyhound, you can, you know, kind of read a magazine, fall asleep for a little bit, get up a couple hours later. You can't do that in a car. So maybe the car is the worst one. But yeah, I've had a lot of experiences on the Greyhound bus. I had one time, big heavy set black woman sat next to me, and I loved it. It was like having a comforter the entire trip. It was so comfortable, and she was warm, and the bus was cold, and I felt like it was a nice comforter. You know, it was like really relaxing. It was good. It was very cozy, you know. And then I've had the best one, and this is before I got married, but I'm going to mention it anyway. I feel like it deserves to be mentioned. Delicious. So, I'm in New York. I'm on the Greyhound bus. It's winter outside. It's cold. It's snowing hard. And I'm on the bus now from New York City, and I'm going, and we're heading towards Syracuse. And we finally get there. Bus pulls over to pick up new passengers, and this really good-looking girl, blonde girl, comes on and sits next to me. And we didn't talk or anything. I was, you know, minding my business. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. So she's minding her business. I'm minding my business. And eventually, I fall asleep. And apparently, at some moment in time, she falls asleep as well. A few hours later, I wake up, and she's cuddled up against me. Now, I'm against the window, and she's right up on me, and she's got her hands on my shoulder, and her head's on my shoulder, and I could feel the warmth from her, and it was so good. It was good. 10 out of 10. And when I noticed her, I did one of, you know, like one of these, and she noticed that I was kind of like looking, and then she looked at me for like 2-3 seconds, and then she went back to sleep, same spot. She didn't pull away or anything, so she spent the night on my shoulder. And we didn't say a word to each other. I didn't say, hey, you know, what are you doing? It's highly inappropriate. Nothing. And we slept the whole, you know, through the whole night. The next morning early, we pulled in, I think it was in Ohio. And she got off the bus, and I was hoping she was going to stay on the bus, because she was very I don't know, give you a feeling of well-being inside. Just her being around. That's the way it just worked out. So anyway, she went to the counter, I guess, to switch buses to go, you know, we were going different directions. And she kept looking over my way to say thanks for the shoulder, but we didn't communicate. I looked over, she looked over a couple of times, and then that was it. So somewhere out there, this person probably still exists. She was like the same age as me back then, and this was like, I think I was like I think I was around 22, 23. Young. Not now. Now, that stuff doesn't happen. I'm married. I'm faithful. So, I don't do that stuff. I don't do it. So, you know. But back then I was young, 22. I didn't do anything back then either. But, you know, I'm just saying it was just a night of sleeping together on a Greyhound bus. Fully clothed. But yeah, but like I said, she was like, yeah, that was a good experience, you know, like she was here, and then I looked, and then she looked, and then she probably said, it's comfortable, I'm not, you know, she could have just pulled back and just went back and, you know, fallen asleep. She could have been, I'm sorry, but nothing. And like I said, it's a good memory. I'll tell you another one goes the opposite way. So we're leaving, I think it was Albuquerque. Leaving Albuquerque, it's late at night, and I'll give you a backstory about Albuquerque. So, there's this guy that looks like Steve Perry from Journey, the lead singer. He's there. Not the real guy, this is like a look-alike. And he's kind of like a little bit of a yapper. And he says to me, hey, you know, when I get on Greyhound, he goes, I can't stand just, you know, sitting there. It's boring. So he goes, I buy a bottle of NyQuil, and I drink it along the way, and it just knocks me out. He goes, and when I wake up, I'm already at the destination, and it just goes by fast. And he pulls it out from the bag, you know, opens it up, takes a sip, and then he does one of these, you know, like bums when they're drinking the wine, the Ripple or whatever, and then they give it to the other guy. He did that to me, and I was like, do I know you? And even if I did know you, do I know about the mononucleosis in the back of your tonsils? Do you think I want to drink from that? No, don't be offering me. You're a stranger, I just met you. He's offering me a NyQuil thing. So I said, no, I'm good. So then we're on the Greyhound bus, and I'm way in the back. The only seat I could find. I'm in the back. And there's one seat next to me available, and the whole bus is packed, and we're near the bathroom, which I hate sitting back there. And this guy that looked like Steve Perry, he's about 6 or 7 rows in front of me on the right hand side, and I'm watching him. Every so often he would open up thing and you know, guzzle down. At one point I saw that he finished the entire bottle of NyQuil. It's like a week's supply in there, I think. And then he sealed it off, put it in the bag, crumbled it up, and tossed it, and he was knocked out like a light. At some point we stopped somewhere, and this really big, heavy guy gets on. Like, when I say big, I'm talking like a good 350. That kind of big, you know. And he had a t-shirt on, and I know where he's coming because there's only one seat available on the entire bus. It's right next to me in the back, and there's a guy, you know, there's a gap seat next to me, and then there's another guy, then the bathroom. So he comes, this guy, huge, sits next to me, and I get squished right up against the window. And he had, I don't know how to describe it, he had a very, very strange smell to him. It wasn't something I could identify. It was just weird. It's like, I don't know, it was like some kind of, you know, awful odor. And I was having a hard time getting used to it. I was talking to my brain, and I was saying, you have to acclimate. You gotta get used to that odor so it doesn't bother you. So it was awful. Anyway, so at some point the bus driver was not turning on his heat, and it was freezing back there. I remember I was looking at the window outside, and I could see it. It was cold, and the bus was just as cold inside. I wanted to yell, oh, hey, turn the, you know, damn heat up. And the guy that was next to me, he had pushed me right up against the thing. I felt like I was being squashed by a steamroller. It was horrible. Anyway, next morning, after freezing all night, we stopped at one of those places where these buses stop for breakfast, and he got off there, and that was the end. That was his final destination, and I kept going. But that was awful. I don't know what that odor was. I've never smelt that again. Never. I can't even compare it to anything. So another experience I had, and I've mentioned this a few times, but since I'm talking about Greyhound, I'm going to mention it again. There was this guy, he got on somewhere in India. Where did he get on? I forget where he got on, but he gets on, and it's him, his wife, and his two kids. And he sits next to me, and his wife sits a couple of rows up with the kids. And he starts talking to me, and talking, and talking, and talking, and he just wouldn't stop. You know, at the beginning I was engaging, you know, I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then after like the first 3 hours, I got tired, you know. I was like, man, this guy's like got a lot of information. So he kept telling me, you know, he goes, pay a lot of rent. Pay a lot of rent here, he goes to me. And he must have mentioned that like 10 times. So I said, you know what? Next time he says that, I'm going to ask him how much. So he said it again, and I said, how much you pay for rent up here? He's like, yeah, I pay $220 a month. And, you know, many years ago, but $220 back then was not a lot of money. You know, very cheap. So he told me every story about his wife, about how she used to smoke, and how the minister or the pastor at his church got her to quit, and how they had roadkill at the place where they were. That was her family they were visiting. They had roadkill, and he was explaining all that stuff. So we get to Indianapolis, and there's a Burger King there, probably still there. And we all got off. We got our meal. We started eating it, and he was eating it, so he wasn't talking. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to finish it before him. And then I had a pair of Walkman. I'm going to put those on, I go, and then, you know, kind of close my eyes, and then he won't say anything to me. So I put the Walkman on, and he's still eating, and then all of a sudden I can hear, you know, and I open my eyes and I look over to him, and he's talking to me. So I took the thing off, and he kept going, and he talked to me for 11 hours. 11 hours. Finally, we got to this location somewhere outside of French Lick, Indiana, and he said bye, and he left. And I look, we're in an empty, like totally empty, you know, parking lot. There's nothing there. There's no stores, no houses, anything. It's just empty. The only ones that got off the bus, him and his wife and his kids. They got off, and he went down below, got the luggage, and then I look out the window, and they're walking with the luggage. Where? I go, where you going? There's no houses here. And they just kept walking. So I don't know what happened to them. But talked to me for 11 straight hours. It was crazy. And then another time, I was Greyhound bus. There was a guy who had left Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Was on the train, was on the bus before me, and he had a baby with him, and he was telling everybody that he had taken the baby from his wife. I guess he didn't have custody, she did, and he took the baby away, and he was like kidnapping the kid. And there were these, you know, chubby women, you know, that looked very motherly to me. And they were taking turns watching the baby while he was, you know, taking a break. You know, and for some reason they were on his side. So I don't know the backstory or whatever, but yeah. So they were on his side, and every couple hours they'd switch. You know, they'd switch. And they all looked like Shirley from What's Happening. Remember that show? They all looked like that, the ladies that were taking care of the baby. Very nice ladies, but they were on his side. I don't know what he told them, but yeah. So he went all the way to LA, and then he just blended into the crowd. I don't know what happened. This was like decades ago. Kid's probably older than Kane now. See what else happened on the Greyhound. I've had a lot of, you know, uneventful passengers sit next to me. They just sat there for a few hours, switched out. Nothing fascinating about them. The one and only that sticks out with good memory was that female that got on at Syracuse. That was awesome. It was awesome. shared a night of sleeping without really sleeping together. Trying to think. I'm trying to think what other. Oh yes, how could I forget this one? So there was a guy. He was heading to Texas. I don't know where he got on, and he had a son and a daughter. And this guy just constantly, going after the son. Son looked like he was about 6 years old. The daughter was probably like 5 or 4. And this guy had a big thermos, had a big Texas hat, and everywhere we would go, he would tell them to fill it up with coffee. And I didn't see 1 minute without him having a cup of coffee and constantly sipping coffee. So he was constantly finishing that big thermos. We would go to a place, he would say, fill it up, constantly drinking. So I remember at nighttime, everybody would be sleeping, and then I would wake up occasionally and I would look around and I'd see him. He would be wide awake with the coffee. Everybody was asleep, but he was wide awake. And he had a temper. Man, his son's name was Zeke. Every like 10 minutes or so, he'd be yelling at Zeke. And I want to tell you, I felt like, I should have been like Robert Young or something. And I should have gone up there and I should have said, you know what, you should try Sanka brand. It'll calm you down a little bit. You're a little bit out of control. So, yeah, he really sticks out. I constantly remember him. He was always drinking coffee. I didn't see him eat anything, but I saw him drink a lot of coffee. I'm trying to think of anybody else. Funny thing is, one time I was traveling by Greyhound and I had a ton of weight in my bag. I had a bag and it was filled with like barbells and stuff and weights. It was really heavy. Thick canvas bag, and it probably had like, I don't know, like in the bag I would say it was like 150 pounds of weight in there. And I picked it up and I tossed it underneath, the compartment on a Greyhound bus. And then on the way, when I was leaving, I was waiting for my stuff to be unloaded, and the dude that pulled it off, he's like, oh man, he goes, I know what you got in there, he goes. I go, what do I have? He's like, tools. And I go, yeah, that's what I have. I have tools, plumbing tools. But it was weights. One time, I almost missed the Greyhound connection. So I was in Maine, totally different travel, and I had done some, business up there in Maine, and I had to get back on the Greyhound bus. It was the last one of the day, and I started running. I was so behind. I was running, and I was like thinking, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to have to spend the entire night wandering around here. And as I'm running, I make it into the area where the bus was, and it was just starting to pull out, and he saw me running and he stopped. The sweat was pouring down, and I was young back then, so I could, handle the run. Now if I did it, who knows? They'd be calling paramedics. Anyway, so he stopped and I went on, and I was like, you're breathing heavy in the bus. Didn't feel right. But I did make it, and up until the last minute, I didn't think I was going to make it. But I've taken a lot of Greyhound buses. I've taken a lot of trains in terms of public transportation. There was a time I would ride the trains just for fun when I was a kid. When I was in the 6th grade, I would just take the trains and just all day spend my time riding up and down, around, switching trains. I would go all over. Apparently my mother thought I was someone in the neighborhood. Clueless. Anyway, that's it for now. I highly recommend this. If you see it, pick it up. It's really good stuff. Put ice in it. I will finish it, Really good. It's pasteurized for your safety, it says here. And I didn't mention, expires December 4th, 2027. 100% juice, no sugar added. Knudsen. Anyway, that's it for now. Ciao.